Turning shame into power, healing our inner child, cultivating more self love, and working on self sabotage. I am Pratna, and you're listening to Rebel with a Purpose. In today's episode, we are going to be speaking about all these topics. I have invited a guest. Her name is Baila, and she is into self worth. You should definitely check out her page. I will link it in the YouTube video or on Spotify, wherever you're listening or watching this episode on. Thank you so much for being here. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Let's get right into it.
Hi, how are you? My name is Baila Rubin. I run the Instagram account Date Yourself with two F's at the end. We talk all about the relationship with yourself, how to cultivate self-worth, how to move through insecurity, and how to really take your struggles and alchemize them into your biggest superpower in the sense that the obstacle is the way. It's not something that you have to resist. It's not something you have to run away from, but actually turn towards them. And that is where your power is. That's your success code. That's where all the juice of your life is going to come from. So I'm so excited to be on this podcast. And thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. That was a beautiful introduction. Okay, so I've been recently working on this, worthiness wound, and I've been
Mm.
very curious to know like the whole not feeling good enough. How do you battle that? Like, how do you deal with not feeling good enough?
I don't know that feeling good enough is like a destination. It obviously originated from somewhere. Like when we think about like not feeling good enough, we're not born not feeling good enough. Like it obviously came from somewhere, and that could either be your parents, like literally in the womb, your mom could feel like she wasn't good enough, and you could literally absorb those feelings like in the womb or like from past lives if you are into those things.
Mm,
Um, or yeah, it's kind of like when we are kids, we up until a certain age, I'm not sure if it's like 5 or 12, we're in our subconscious mind essentially. We're just absorbing, and everyone that we perceive is a mirror of us in the sense that we internalize all of it. So if our parents have capacity for our emotions, if they have capacity or if they don't have capacity, we internalize it as something about us because our brain is not developed enough to like see ourselves as an individual, like us and our mom are the same. And
mm,
then there's like stages where you learn that like, oh, these are boundaries, we're different people. But it's
mm.
like a lot of childhood stories and woundings of other people that you really just soak up, and it's like your brain is a sponge, especially when you're younger. That could even like translate into like adulthood if you have like a really traumatic experience, like if you have like a really crazy story with like a an ex-boyfriend or something that happened later on in your years, and it was like really intense. Even if you're an adult, like it could still really have the same kind of effect. So it's more so the habit, I would say, of intentional reprogramming and adjusting and doing intentional work in adjusting that energy and mindset and healing to show up in a new reality. It's kind of like a train track, and you're on one, and you can always switch to another one, and sometimes you'll go back, or like a more so like a lane on a highway. You have like two lanes on a highway. It's like you're driving in one lane, and then sometimes like you can switch to other track.
Non-linear, right? Like the process
Yeah.
of, like there are times, like you said, there are times that you just wake up and you're not feeling worthy, but there are days where you could like wake up and just feel worthy. And it really depends.
Yeah.
It also has a lot to do with, like you said, the past stories that we've told ourselves or we've internalized, and it could come from our womb and it could come from past lives.
Mm.
And what's crazy is that, like, I know a lot of people deal with this. Like, I deal with it. I started speaking up about it. I have a therapist for this. I have a relationship coach who helps me on this. My friends have started speaking to me about how they don't feel good enough this time or something triggered them. And what's at the root of the trigger is that they didn't feel good enough. And that's
Mm.
why they got triggered, or that's why it affected them so much and they started getting defensive. A lot of times that leads to also self-sabotage. So I want to
Mm.
talk about like where does this come from? Why do we self-sabotage and what does it mean?
Self-sabotage is really when you have two conflicting needs. One of them, I'll give you an example about a personal experience that happened to me. I was really depressed and overweight at a certain point in my life, about 2 years ago. I've been dieting my whole life. I did like all the things that would take weight loss medication, starve it, like all the stuff. Um, and I was so sick of it, and I was like 50 pounds overweight, and I was not in a good place, and I was like, what is going on? Like, why does everyone else seem like they could just like eat normally? Like, why is my whole life like so filled with this like food like craziness? Like, what's going on? And like I tried to lose weight, and I just like I couldn't. I would always fall back on binging. I had a really big issue with binging. So I took myself into a deep meditation once, and I asked my subconscious, I was like, how are you helping me? Because I'm doing this for a reason. You're obviously helping me. Self-sabotage is helping you in a way. It's just you don't know what the other core need is that's underneath it, because your body doesn't do things for no reason. Your body's always helping you. It's just like, what is the programming behind that? What core need are they helping? And when I went into my subconscious through this meditation, I was like, why can't you let me lose the weight? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I found a belief that in my head that was telling me, if I look my best, if I feel my most attractive, then I'll get this unwanted attention from men. And I was really, really terrified of that on a deep, deep level. And I was like, if you stay, it wasn't just the weight. It was like I wasn't taking care of myself mentally, physically. Like I had a really low self-esteem. And I was like, that was serving me because it was protecting me. It was trying to protect me from getting attention and getting, I didn't want to be seen, because I was like, oh, if I'm seen, that makes me a target for this unwanted attention. And then I really acknowledged that. I was like, wow, thank you for trying to protect me. Like that really makes sense if you think about it. How my body's acting, I'm acting in accordance to this deep need of safety. So everything I'm doing, even if I consciously want to lose weight and feel attractive, I have safety that takes priority over that. And yes, it's not serving my conscious desires, but
Hmm.
it's serving a subconscious desire. So how do we switch that? So when I worked with my subconscious and I was like deep in a theta state in my meditation, I first of all acknowledge and thank that part of me. Like, thank you for showing up for me and trying to protect me and like doing the best you can with the information that you had. Like, thank you. And then I offered it new information, and I was like, this is not serving you in the sense of like, oh, you want safety. Okay, so like being in a low self-esteem, that would cause you to engage with men who like wouldn't treat you well. To be able to get what I wanted, which was that safety with a man in a relationship, I would need to start respecting myself. And so I offered that switch, which allowed my conscious desire and my subconscious need to both be met in a way that,
So both be
yeah, it
aligned
kind of
with
like,
each other. You try to align your
yeah,
subconscious with your
yeah,
conscious. And then how did you
exactly.
start respecting yourself? Or like, I really like that you spoke about safety before I get to the next question, which is like about respect
Mhm.
and boundaries. But safety, as you said, comes from your subconscious and it really stops you from taking your conscious actions towards your desires, which is why you also spoke about having the polarity that sometimes you feel unworthy and you can still take action that can help you feel
Mhm.
more worthy, even though it's the opposite because you try to push through that fear or you push through the that need for being safety when you're aware of what it's trying to do because it's our
Mhm.
job, it's our mind's job to keep us safe but not to keep us happy, and that's completely our
Mm.
responsibility. So when you speak about like setting boundaries or building that respect for yourself to attract more healthy men and attract more healthy relationships in your life, how did you do that? Because that switch, I assume, is hard to make, to go from feeling like you're only worth toxic relationships, or you don't want to be
Mhm.
seen by healthy people, or you don't want to put yourself out there and be and gain all that attention. So, how did you make that switch from that deep rooted subconscious fear to then being okay with being seen and being okay with being loved and having a healthy relationship, or like being open to a healthy relationship?
Yeah, yeah, I love that question. So I would say first, awareness is 50% of the battle. Like once you are aware of what isn't working and then what is working, even if the switch doesn't happen automatically, like you know what's going on, and you might still do that pattern like a million thousand times, but eventually it will get to a point where you see that like what you're doing like doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't make any, like, the binging is not solving your problem. You're just going to be really
Yeah.
extra full and still be in that emotional pain. And then when you think about um when you think about why would someone choose to be in a not healthy relationship, or even when they know what's the best option for them, like what is going on behind the scenes, and it's usually patterns and triggers. And when uh, being attracted to and engaging in unhealthy relationship dynamics are really just a symptom of the emotional chaos inside of you, because it's like, when you know what you're supposed to be doing, you know it doesn't make any sense, why are you still doing it? And a lot of times it can be that people don't have the emotional capacity to handle the intensity of their own emotions. So it's like, oh, you feel so impulsive one day and you don't have the capacity to sit with the impulsivity, or to sit with the stress, and to sit with the trigger and the emotional chaos in your system. So you're like, oh, a quick fix will just, let me text my ex, let me just go scroll on Tinder, let me just go da da da, because there's a lack of capacity to deal with the emotional intensity underneath. And it's a journey for sure. And I just, like, whoever's listening, like, really be so kind to yourself through this journey, because there will be times where you go back and you do scroll on Tinder and you do hook up with an ex and you do all these steps that you know better. But again, it's like that gym, like each workout you do is not going to give you the six pack, but it's like a step in the right direction. And noticing your growth about, like, each time you choose to sit with your big emotions over and over and over and over and over. Like, this is not, you don't get to a place where you stop sitting with your emotions. You're constantly over and over sitting with your emotions. And that's how you build the self-trust within yourself, to be like, oh, I can actually, like, face my emotions. Because all going back to, like, toxic relationships is all an avoidance tactic. It's like you're too stressed out and you're just like, I don't want to deal with these emotions. Let me avoid them by going to text my ex. And it's like, each time you don't do that, you are it's another vote
Mm.
for the kind of person that you want to be. It's the kind of relationship you want to have. It's like you're creating not just a relationship with your future partner, but more importantly with yourself, like showing up for yourself, like building that self-trust that, like, yes, I can handle your emotions, and I'm also not going to go and back into, like, spaces that are harmful and relationships that are harmful. Like, that's how you build, like, the trust with yourself, to actually, like, know that you can take care of yourself, is just expanding your capacity little by little to hold the depth of your emotions. I remember one time where I was really about, like, I knew the pattern of, like, my binging,
Yeah.
but still, like, I'm in the cycle. Like, I got really stressed out, I really wanted to binge, I was really over emotional. Like, that's nice to know it cerebrally in your head, but, like, now what do you do? And I remember I was like, listen, like, I might binge after this, but the first baby step that I can take in the right direction was, I'm gonna go in my meditation. I'm gonna sit with my inner child and listen to her pain. And I might still eat everything that I have in my fridge and order three Uber Eats deliveries after this. But the first step that I can take is to actually listen to the pain that I'm and distress
Mhm.
that my inner child's asking of me right now, and
Mm.
unburdening it. And if that's the best I can do in this moment, that's the best I can do in this moment. And that's the tiniest step that I made in the right direction. And I remember, like, sitting with the stress and my fear, and a memory came up about my dad, who was, like, really, who used to be really angry. And, like, I remember just being, as a child, like, being just, like, terrified of him. And there was such a fear that my inner child carried, of just terror. And so I didn't know what to do with the terror. So I would just stuff it down with food. And I was like, wow, like, I didn't realize, like, you were hurting. And I remember just, like, crying and crying and crying after that. And normally, and from the beginning, I wouldn't have connected the two, like, oh, I'm binge eating right now because I'm scared of something that
Mm.
happened with my dad. But it was only when I really faced what my inner child was trying to communicate to me through this terror, through this stressful feeling, that she's in pain. And I was able to sit with her. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am today, which is losing almost 50 pounds. And I don't count calories. I don't restrict. I don't do anything. I hardly ever think about food. I have a really good relationship with fitness, and I'm very, very easy on myself when it comes to food. And I used to sit and think about food 24/7. I used to have such a crazy relationship with it. My whole self-worth was based on how I looked and how I felt. And that's all. I feel like it's a long journey, but I'm doing really well
Yeah.
compared.
Yeah. Oh my
So,
God. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so vulnerable. Firstly, you're so brave for sharing that. And that gave me so much of an insight into also, your story and what you're trying to say with the
mhm,
whole being empowered now and also healing your inner child and how that helped you to understand this connection between binge eating and the terror that you had. And yeah, if you look at it, you just don't see the connection, but you really did the work and went to the root of it. And what would you say is like ways to heal your inner child? Like how have you connected with her? How have you healed that terror or at least started that relationship with your inner child and made her feel safe and seen?
mm. Well, I remember 4 or 5 years ago, I was walking down the street in COVID, and the streets were empty, and I was walking down, and it was like my first time trying to build a relationship with my inner child. And my, I was trying to talk to her and sit with her, and she looked at me. She's like, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" Am I allowed to curse?
No, you're allowed to, of course.
Okay.
Of course you are.
Okay. She's like, "Who are you? You abandoned me my entire life. Now you want to have a relationship with me? That's cute." And I remember just getting so frustrated because I was
Mm,
like, "I'm never gonna have a good relationship with my inner child. This is too hard. I can't do it." And it was just day after day after day after day of, even when my own inner child was rejecting me, like she's like, "Now you're gonna show up after like you just abandoned me my whole life." It was just showing up. Imagine like a child and a parent, and like the child having a tantrum being like, "I hate you," and the mom's like, "I'm still here with you. I'm still gonna sit here with you. I'm gonna take all your hate for me. I'm gonna take all your anger and I'm gonna sit with you." And it's just presencing over and over, and allowing your emotions to exist. It's like even sometimes when we think we're feeling our emotions fully, what we're really feeling is the resistance to it. We're like, "Oh, I feel stress, but I don't want to feel stress." And so a good easy switch is to tell this really uncomfortable feeling like, "You can stay here as long as you need. Like,
mm,
you're allowed to be here. I'm not like, you're not, you don't need to leave. Like, we don't need to be happy right now. I promise you have all the time in the world." And when you truly mean that, when you truly don't have an agenda for it to go away and to try to be happy and, "Oh, I'm only letting it in so it will go away." Like, if it feels that, it's your body. It can tell when you're resisting it. When you truly allow it to, you take off this judgment towards it and you're like, "Hey, like, I invite you, like, I'm not pushing you away, I invite you more, come more, like, try to make the sensation heighten." When you truly are feeling a feeling, it only takes 90 seconds for it to move through you completely. So if you ever feel like, "Oh, this is really, really intense," know that after 90 seconds, if you're truly in it and not in a story in your head of, "Oh, da, 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 da," like truly in the sensations of your body, it will move through you in 90 seconds. And that's all it takes. And like just the constant showing up to your distress over and over really, really develops that relationship. Even if your inner child like at first doesn't trust you or is skeptical or doesn't want to talk to you, like that's like if you're an adult, like it's not the child's job to start start like trusting you. Like you have to earn the child's trust. Like you're the adult here. Like act like the adult.
yeah.
Even if you don't have to have the inner child's validation of you to like for you to show up for it. You don't have to have the inner child's approval. Like your job as as when you're reparenting your own inner
Mm,
child is to accept and be grounded in accepting all of their pain, all of their hatred towards you, all of their agony, all of their everything, and just be like, "I'm here for you." Like express, 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 express over and over and over until they feel comfortable with it. And I'm really happy to just feel like I'm in a space where my inner child feels really, really comfortable expressing just
mm,
itself, and it feels safe
yeah.
in me. So
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. What is the process that you use to heal your inner child? Like, do you do a visualization meditation or do you write a
mm,
letter to your inner child? Like, what process do you use?
mm. So I do love meditating. I know that's not for everybody, but that really, really works for me. Um, and it's more so that like even like let's say if I'm not in a place that I can meditate, I will. if I'm feeling like an intense emotion that I can't push off till like the night where I can really go and delve into the meditation, I'll really again just be like I'm like, oh, I only need 90 seconds for to be able to move through this, and I'll really focus on taking like on bringing that deep emotion, like heightening the volume, turning the volume up on that deep emotion to as much as I can bear it, which is usually like you have capacity more than you think you have capacity. A lot of times people don't like to turn towards their emotions because they think it's going to overpower them, but you'll be surprised that you can actually really most of the time hold like really intense experiences, and just knowing that it's going to pass after 90 seconds, that's really a practical um, tool that I use to do that.
Mm.
But I'm
That's
saying whatever works for you. If a journal session works for you, if it's talking, if it's doing EFT tapping, if it's
mm,
hugging yourself, but I think the most important thing is not to, when people have like a negative experience, like when you feel like really unworthy or unwanted, I find that like when people tap and they're like, I'm wanted, it's kind of like a baby's crying and you're just like, shut up, you're wanted, you're loved. And is that love? Like, is
mhm,
that if is that the action of love? Like, yeah, you're yelling at the kid like, oh, you're loved, you're loved. I'm telling you, I don't feel love.
mhm.
So how are you shouting at me, oh, you're loved, be quiet, you're loved? Like, how is that helpful? I mean, to some people, if that works, fine. But I feel like for me, I'm just like, if I don't feel loved, like the way that would make me feel loved is for me to be allowed to express the depth of me not feeling loved, and for me to be able to express to you how hurt I am, and for you to be like, even if it's not true, even if you are loved, like I just want to feel the freedom of expressing that to my fullest capacity. And that action would be one of love. Because if I love you, I'm going to allow you to express all your pain to me, and I will hold you through all of that because you're valid and you're worthy. And that's an expression of worthiness and an action of worthiness versus just saying, like, oh, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy, when I don't feel worthy.
Yeah. So you
So,
do that through a visualization, like you close your eyes and
mhm,
you visualize meeting your inner child, you visualize meeting your younger self, or do you, as you said, you drop down into your physical body and you feel that emotion in your body?
I work really well with feeling my feeling sense. Some people work well with their vision, with their vision, or they imagine hearing, or
Yeah.
just conceptually. I personally work really well with my feeling sense. So I really turn the dial up on my feeling sense. I hope that
Okay.
answers your question.
Yeah, that answers my question. Okay, so more of the emotions. So for me, I did an inner child healing like a few weeks ago where I visualized going back in time from where I am
Yeah.
today to like the last memory I could have of feeling a certain way. Like we started off with feeling not good enough, right? So I was doing
Mm,
that inner child healing on that, went back in time to the first time I felt that way, and it was so weird because something came up that I never even expected to come up. Like I didn't know that this was the incident that made
mm,
me feel unloved and unseen and hurt. And then I went back to that time and was talking to her and comforting her and making her feel seen and understanding that she needs to be heard and she needs to express, because at that point of time she never expressed and she suppressed, and so now she wanted to express to heal that wound. So that's what I was doing, and it was so deep and
mm,
heavy, but at the same time, like, it felt good after a while. Like in the moment it
yeah.
wasn't it didn't feel good. It felt really hard. Like it was like, why I don't want to deal with this right now. Like I don't want to face this big emotion right now. But once I did, so I did it with a coach. I was on a call. Once I did and I like cried it all out. It After that it was just like the next day actually. After the coaching session, I had a salt water bath to like get it all off, like the heavy
Yeah.
emotions. And then the next day I was just like, honestly, it felt good. Like I feel like she's proud of me for being able to go back
Yeah.
and build a relationship with her. And
Mm,
now that has started, like me building my relationship with my inner child. And I've seen how that has been so positive in terms of just feeling happier overall, like just feeling happier and feeling more seen and heard, and also not seeking a lot of external validation like I used to. So on to the next question, which is, why do we seek external validation? Like, where is that coming from? And what are the ways that you could suggest that we start trusting ourselves more or seeking validation from ourselves and not needing too much of that external validation or reassurance all the time.
In your past, if you had, even if you had a good perception of you, it was not safe to
To be different.
uphold that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not safe to be
Yeah.
different and have this identity of like wanting respect because other people were not treating you that way. So then it was like that over time, like reinforces this like idea that like other people have the answers, other people have the safety,
Yeah.
other people can, yeah, have the power to make you feel okay or not okay. And
Yeah.
you kind of, when you really internalize like other people have the capacity, have the ability to make you feel okay or not okay, specifically the not okay part, you really do whatever you can to try to people please and try to be like, no, like I'm going to contort myself into this so that you'll accept me, so then I'll be okay, because it reminds you of like in your past, oh, you got really, really bullied, oh, you got really, really seen in this negative light, and I don't want to be seen like that because it was so traumatic and I never want to feel less than again. So if you approve of me, then I'll be good. So it's more of like this like fear of rejection, this fear of like being humiliated will make you contort yourself and desire an external validation for you to feel okay, just because the shame, the fear, the humiliation, the ostracization, the abandonment, the feeling alone, like that is really painful and heavy, especially for like a child or anyone to really to hold at any time. And you never want to feel like that, especially subconsciously. They're like, that was really painful, and I never want to feel like that. So I will do whatever I can to seek validation from you, so that I never have to have that part triggered inside of me ever.
Yeah. And I love how like it went back to safety again. Like everything stems from safety. Like our subconscious wants to keep us
Mm-hmm.
safe and it wants us again, like we have this fear of not belonging or not fitting into the tribe, not fitting in with everyone else or not being loved. And I feel like those are like the basic human fears that we have. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, the subconscious mind is filled with emotion, filled with fear, right? So it's holding us back from taking action that could actually, like, it's a risk. It requires a lot of bravery to be different, to stand out, to not fit in with the tribe, to again, like, be alone at the top, which is like when you're really yourself and authentically being who you are, you might not have a lot of people. They say, the real ones, don't have a lot of friends, but it's because most people are trying to just follow the herd or not give in to their uniqueness because of this fear of being ostracized or this fear of
Mm-hmm.
being excluded. And that fear is like, again, coming in the form of inauthenticity and coming in the form of
Mm-hmm.
shame, like you just spoke about shame. So how would you say we turn shame into power? Because shame is there in so many forms, in so many ways it impacts our life. It stops us from being our authentic selves. It stops us from being audacious. It stops us from just putting our power and our magic into the world in so many ways. So how does one face this shame and this fear of looking a certain way or coming across a certain way, and being judged? How do we face this and turn that into power where we are willing to take brave actions towards being our
Mm-hmm.
authentic self?
So you can either take the route of slaying the shame by liberating it. Essentially, it's like liberating the shame and being like, I like this is who I am, this is my
Yeah,
experience,
owning
this
it.
is me,
Yeah.
owning it. Or enjoying the feeling of the shame, because there is pleasure in shame. And I personally experienced this recently, where I had a lot of work to do, and then I just didn't do any of my work, and I was like really shaming myself for it. And I was like, I see you doing this theme over and over, where it's like you won't do your work, and then you like you start shaming yourself, and there's a secret like enjoyment of it. It's like a pain is pleasure kind of enjoyment, and like the self-flagellation, like what are you getting out of that? And a lot of times we think that we don't like these things, but they feel good on some level. So to take your power back essentially from this shame is to admit, I'm enjoying feeling this, because many times when we do things that we think we don't like, we're like, we can convince and scream from the rooftops, I hate this, I hate this, it feels uncomfortable. And then like you find yourself in that same place over and over. A part of you is enjoying this experience, a part of you
Yeah.
loves this experience. If you look at the layers deeper,
Yeah. So it's
like,
self-sabotage
yeah,
again. That's the way of
yeah,
self-sabotaging again.
yes, like we love the experience of like, what are you experiencing? Like, for example, like let's say like let's say you like for example, for me, like I won't fill my gas tank until it's literally empty. Like I have 2 miles left. And then it's like if I would get stuck on the side of the road, it's like, why do you not just fill your gas tank? It's because I love like the thrill of like, oh my
Yeah.
God, am I gonna make it? Like it's like this like drama, it's chaos, energy, blah, blah, blah. And I could like feel like, oh my God, you're such a weirdo, you're such a loser. Like, why are you like you can cover it with the shame, but secretly it's like you love this like where's the thrill in it? And finding the
Yeah.
thrill can liberate you from the trap and this jail that you put yourself in and seeing it as like, oh, shame versus like just like own it. Like I love being here. I love the thrill of like I don't know what's gonna happen. I love the chase. I love the drama. Like what am I getting out of it? You
Yeah.
take your power back when you own it and you say, what am I getting out of it? The more you resist
Yeah.
this experience, be like, oh, it's happening to me. I'm such a victim. If you constantly find yourself in the space of being a victim, be like, I love being a victim. I recently just put a post on my Instagram where I'm like, I love being a victim. I get so much out of it. I also know that that's not where I want to be. I want to be successful in my life. I want to take ownership of my life. But to say that I don't want to be a victim and I don't know how I get here, girl, I love being a victim. I get love, I get connection, I get money sometimes. Like I get a lot of stuff from being a victim and owning it and changing the narrative of like looking at it as like, oh, poor me, to like, how is this benefiting my life and what enjoyment do I get out of it? And changing your relationship dynamic with this shame or victimhood or quote or like negative experience and seeing what's the benefit, where do I secretly love this experience, and using that to like change the trajectory of like how you can either start just like enjoying your negative habits, or you can use it to adjust and be like, actually this doesn't serve me, so like let me find how I can get this thrill in another way that's productive and actually helps me versus like, oh, let me not fill my gas tank
Yeah.
till it's on 0 miles, like
Yeah.
you don't have to like override the thrill and be like, I shouldn't have the thrill. Like your body loves the thrill. So just have the thrill in a different area of your life and then fill
It's
up your
more
gas tank.
productive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are two things that need to happen is one is that you need to first accept and own that you're having pleasure in shaming yourself or in that certain like disruptive behavior. And then the
Mhm.
second thing is asking yourself like how's this benefiting me and is there another route that is more productive or another route that would be more helpful for my future self. So those are like
Yeah.
the two steps that I've seen from
Yeah.
whatever you said, and then decide whether you want to stick to that, but like have it from a place of being but enjoying it and not victimizing yourself or complaining or shaming and hating yourself, or taking another route and then feeling more powerful and empowered with a new pattern that you start rewiring your subconscious mind to accept and implement in life, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that was amazing though. Thank you so much for your answers. I feel like there were so many golden nuggets in the metaphors you used and the things that you really said. Like it really clicked open certain things in my brain and made me understand things on a deeper level. So thank you so much for that.
Hmm.
How are you
That
feeling?
makes me feel good. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity and to have this conversation with you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're a really great interviewer, and it was a pleasure being in your energy.
Same here. Thank you so much. Well, that was the end of this episode. I really got a lot of golden nuggets out of it, and I hope you had some takeaways on how to heal your inner child, how to cultivate more self love, how to build worthiness in your life, and take that 1% step every single day of taking action, even when feeling unworthy. You're listening to Rebel with a Purpose. I'm Pratna, signing off.